Let's do some politics now, because the office of the vice president has debunked reports that the vice president's campaign is being funded by some Islamic group in Nigeria. Spokesperson for the vice president, Dr. Gideon Buaku, says the publication is false, fabricated, and only serves the propaganda purposes of its promoters. Let's share with you the statement that has been released now. It says the attention of the Bawumia campaign team has been drawn to a post by one David Humdeyen, a journalist in Nigeria, that the Bawumia campaign is being funded by some Islamic group in Nigeria called the ACF. We noticed that the same narrative has been copied by some persons and groups in Ghana on social media. This narrative is obviously false, fabricated, and only serves the propaganda purposes of its promoters. For the avoidance of doubt, the Bawumia campaign has no funding or any link with any Islamic group in Nigeria or anywhere else. We also note that the said David Humdeyen has promoted a pension for making similar claims against some persons and groups in Nigeria without any basis whatsoever. The Bawumia campaign is focused and will not be distracted by such vain untruth. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has been very diligent and transparent from his days as a scholar, banker, and politician throughout his life, and will not depart from these now and forever, issued by the Communications Directorate. Now, we're joined via Zoom by one of the spokespersons of the Bawumia campaign, Dr. Kabiru Mahama, who is joining us here. Doc, I'm grateful to you for joining us now. How is the campaign team of the VEEP taking all of this? Okay, we've also been joined by the head of the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana, Professor Aludi Seidu. Prof, I'm grateful for joining us here. What do you make of all of this allegation, and what sort of impact can it have on this campaign process? Prof, kindly unmute so we can hear what you're telling us here. All right, so Professor Aludi Seidu is head of the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana. Okay, so Prof, I cannot hear you. Hello, Prof. So I wanted to find out from you what you do make of this information that the Vice President's campaign is being funded by an Islamic group. The campaign team have debunked this allegation and saying that they do not have any financial link to any group whatsoever. What do you make of this development, and do you foresee it having any impact on the campaign processes so far? Well, I think we are having some technical challenges. We'll be solving them. But the story is that a Nigerian-based journalist is alleging that the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has his campaign being funded by a Nigerian-based Islamic group. But the Vice President's campaign team has debunked this allegation, saying that they do not have any link to any group whatsoever, and that the Vice President is not ready to break the philosophy that underpins his person. We'll delve into this particular matter into details right after this very short break. We'll be back. Welcome back from the break. Now, let's return to our earlier story about the Bawumia campaign allegedly being funded by an Islamic group based in Nigeria. But the campaign team has debunked this allegation. We've been joined on Zoom, via Zoom, by a spokesperson for the Bawumia campaign team, Dr. Kabiru Mahama. We also have via Zoom the head of the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana, Professor Aludi Seidu. Prof, I was asking you for your input on this, but once I have the the campaign team spokesperson. Kindly indulge me. Let me find out from him. Dr. Kabiru Mahama, how is the campaign team taking all of this?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and to your cherished listeners. If you indulge me, when the information yesterday, I think that the first brochure of that information was with me on Metro TV when it was mentioned. Quickly, I disregarded it, and I mentioned that the campaign team will not be distracted by such horrible lies, to the effect that such a statement was made against the vice president and by someone who has had the notoriety for making such statements, and the Ghanaian media launching onto that particular story. The spokesperson for the vice president had to issue that statement. That was just to put the matter to rest. That statement for us suffices for any adequate response. The author of that statement on Twitter and those people who are holding on to that statement for us suffices as a response. Aside that, the vice president is focused on the campaign. Certainly, the technologies will always come, but the focus is on winning the NPP promise and winning the election for the NPP and for the people of Ghana, so that the transformation agenda, the vision that was set forward by the vice president when he took his form, and the details of it will be unveiled, will be pursued in its fullness.
So what does the campaign team intend to do about the source of the allegation in trying to clear the name of the vice president?
Because Mr. David Hodin is noted for such statements, and if you just indulge me, he made a fuss about Mr. Dangote, who is a young business person. Also propaganda, also of lies were peddled about Mr. Dangote. The same gentleman mentioned that Tinubu, the current president of Nigeria, was a drug dealer, and that he had made some money and was arrested by United States authorities for dealing in drugs. That turned out to be falsehood. Again, recently, the same person is making allegation that Mr. Tinubu has a Guinean passport or is a citizen of Guinea. And that same story is also not true. The notoriety of the gentleman in propagating was also highlighted when his account was even blocked by Twitter for consistently pushing propaganda, anti-government propaganda. It is only someone who is obsessively delusional who will believe in the story being put out by the gentleman. Of course, we are in free democracy we're in a democracy where freedom of speech has to be respected. But we tolerate such views. Much more bigger things have been said about the vice president. The vice president was recently noted or being projected as someone holding a British passport. We will just dispel those rumors, continue with the campaign, but the vice president team do not intend to do anything aside clarifying this. Anyone with extra information, if you feel like the vice president is actually engaged in campaign funding from inappropriate sources, illegal sources, you have the recourse to the courtroom to prove that. Okay? And the vice president is a law-abiding citizen. He doesn't intend to engage in any campaign funding. That is not in consonance with the laid down rules of laid down laws of the country. So that is just the position. We are not moved. We are not disturbed by this negative propaganda. It will come. Many or more of such will come. But the most important thing is the focus. The team will be focused, the vice president will be focused, the campaign will be pursued. And all these things are coming because of the traction the campaign is gathering. Earlier on, other candidates were on the field, having a field day during their campaign. The vice president was occupied with the business of the state, and he had his accommodating leave, and he used that to start his campaign. But when the campaign is traction, you will expect this distraction to come. For us, the vice president is focused, and we will do the campaign clean. Campaign will not tell lies on anyone, and will not actually also allow any lies peddling on the vice president to fester. We will respond when but most of these lies will just disregard and continue with the campaign.
Kindly stay with me. Let me bring in the head of the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana, Professor Ali Dusedu. Prof, What do you make of this, and will it have any impact whatsoever on this campaign?
Good evening to you and to your viewers. I think Dr. Kabiru and then the campaign of the Vice President has made it clear that this is not true. And the fact that the person who has raised the allegation has a lot of credibility deficit. He has been doing that. So basically, on the value of the arguments from the Vice President's camp, this is not true. But assuming it is true, what are the implications? We all know that during election periods like this, there are a lot of people looking out. So let me put it this way. Election presents an opportunity for investment. Transnational corporations, multinational corporations, governments of developing countries, individuals, even organized crimes group always look out for opportunities like this to be able to position themselves for favor and due favor when that particular candidate is elected. So if this was to be true, the implication would have been that it could lead to a serious issue of special interest favor. The group that is sponsoring or is alleged to be sponsoring the Vice President campaign is not going to do it for nothing. You know, he or the group will be doing it with the intention that they're going to be able to assess the Vice President and ask for favor and demand favor when he's eventually elected to lead the NPP into next year's election and eventually becomes elected as president of this country. And those kind of favors are usually opportunities that are used to pay back those people who have invested. And sometimes a lot of due diligence are not done. And sometimes it can even lead to corruption and corrupt practices. Because when people are when you are giving that kind of favor at the heat of the campaign, it means that you also have to pay back. And sometimes the deals that are done to pay these people back usually don't go through proper procurement process, don't go through proper vetting and tender processes. And they usually kind of behind the scenes dealings that is meant to reward these people. And thirdly, what may happen is that it tends to bring what we call governance capture. So basically, you have a government that is not able to do what it's supposed to do, even if that is what the people want. Because there's somebody behind the scenes who calls the shots, because that person sponsored your campaign. So technically, you see the citizens demanding one particular thing, and government is very adamant in doing that particular thing. So there's a huge lot of what we call responsiveness in governance processes is the ability of government to accept people's demands and translate those demands into concrete action that addresses that challenge. Where the demands of the people or the citizens of Ghana conflict with the demands of the sponsors, there's a tendency that governments are likely going to go with the decision or the demands or the interests of the sponsors rather than citizens. So it kind of presents a very complex situation for governance processes, for accountability, for transparency. But the benefit is that the candidate that received that money is able to organize a better campaign, is able to campaign ahead of his competitors, and is able to position himself or herself in a manner that brings dividends to the campaign. Okay. But as we look at it now, there's a strong denial from the campaign of the Vice President that this is not true. Okay. So if what I'm saying is a hypothetical situation.
Doesn't it then bring in the whole argument about, funding sources for prosecuting political campaigns?
So I think there's been a huge debate since the beginning of the Fourth Republic as to whether the state should come up boldly and sponsor, besides the things that the state has already been doing. There's a kind of state sponsorship, but not as is done in other jurisdictions. So political parties are calling out for the state to be directly involved, design actions and guidelines that will gain traction for this particular policy, in the sense that it leaves governments that win elections the ability to meet the demands of the people, the ability to have the freedom to make decisions and implement programs that actually put the interests of the people as their famous priority. So basically, where this is lacking, government's hands are tied in their ability to do a whole lot of things. What we have seen with this proposal is the fact that it has been politically laden, as we fully know in this country. When the NPP is in government, the NDC will be leading the call for state sponsorship of political parties. When the tables turn, you see the reverse. So you don't see that element of commitment from the political parties to actually having a standardized state sponsorship for political parties and its ability to cure all the mischief and these allegations that are associated with it. So until we rally behind the clarion call to have state sponsor political parties, whichever kind or form is going to take, we'll mostly see some of these things happening. Over the years, you've seen civil society organizations, NGOs, and other civic bodies leading this particular charge. But political parties usually keep quiet or get quiet when they are in government, and when they are in opposition, they think it is a good thing to do.
Interesting. But will it come to a point where they can tell us that, okay, even though state is not sponsoring, my funding sources are A, B, and C?
Yeah, so I think there are, in some democracies, there are regimes like that for reporting back how much money you have earned and how much money you have spent. And even there are thresholds. You cannot spend beyond a certain threshold. And at the end of the year, you have to account. So, but there are issues of gaps in implementing most of the very beautiful laws that we've had in this country. In especially the way donors present money to political parties and candidates. It's done in a very dodgy way. In some democracies, you have to report. It's either done through bank transfer or it's done through a check and all those things, so they can trace. But here in the middle of the night around 2 a.m., somebody brings you, Ghana must go back full of money. Only you and him knows what is happening. So who do you account to? So basically what we need to do is to tighten our ability, the donation processes, and make it more regular so that state agencies that are empowered to be able to enforce these laws will be able to do it in a manner that is remarkable, that is beneficial, and that can prevent people abusing that system.
Grateful to you, Professor Ali Dusedu, for joining us here. Dr. Kabiru Mahama is with us. Doc, so would you be kind enough to, because of this development, telling us the funding sources for the Bawumia team? Is this something you're considering doing?
Yeah, I think the Vice President would be unveiling his funding strategy for the campaign. I don't think it's going to be premature for me to, at this particular time, tell that if you're an observer of the social media, you see that a particular code has been trending for a relative while now. People are donating, or some people have even started donating, even though formally that has not been unveiled. That will be unveiled, and that is one of the sources. The Vice President has also got well-wishers and families and friends who are actually keen and ardent believers in the cause of the Vice President. They have been supporting the Vice President in this particular campaign. And recently, some few weeks ago, we realized that there were some pickups that made a lot of noise. That was an individual who believed that the Vice President candidature is good for the country. He decided to support the campaign with vehicles. All these are funding sources for the campaign. And I'm sure a more much more organized funding scheme will be introduced. We will be relying on the money of the Ghanaian people, of well-wishers of the party and of the NPP and Ghanaians at large to support the campaign. But at this particular juncture, a complete list of funding sources, it will be premature for me to disclose that. But the appropriate campaign team and the leadership of the campaign team would unveil that to the Ghanaian people.
Grateful to you, Dr. Kabiru Mahama, for joining us. He is one of the spokespersons for the Bawumia campaign team. Now, while Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia has ended his campaign tour of the Ashanti region, former Trade and Industry Minister Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen is beginning a tour of the OT region. We're joined by the OT regional correspondent, Peter Senu, to tell us what's happening. Peter, grateful that you could join us here. We've also been joined via Zoom by Yao Boabeng as Samoa spokesperson for the Alan Kyerematen campaign team. Grateful to you, for joining us here. So, what's the plan for the OT region now that you've landed in that region?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Very well. Thank you very much. This morning, we started from Jessica, this is Bawumia, and Akan, and Biakoye, and Guan constituencies. As we speak, we are in Nkwanta South having a meeting. I'm speaking to you from Nkwanta South.
Okay. What's the focus of the team? We know that when you go to places, you do a combined, constituency sort of meeting. Is that going to be same here, or the focus is changing?
No, the focus will not change, but you adapt depending on the geographical circumstance. So the first meeting we had this morning in OT was made up of 4 constituencies. That's what I told you. The 4 constituencies were hosted in Jessica. And now we have to come to Nkwanta South by itself because the distances are very, very great. And beyond this, we'll then continue to Nkwanta North, because again, the distances are quite far apart. And then you need to go to Karachi as well, which will mean crossing the river. So it depends on the geography. But beyond this region, I doubt if there will have to be an occasion where we do it this way anymore.
Okay.
But it's a mix, because the first 4 we did this morning were all together.
How is the response by the people? We've seen what happened in the Volta region. And in Nkwanta, how is the response like?
It's beautiful. They've spent time, they've left their farms, and they've transported themselves here to listen to us. And out of 800 delegates, we see in act of service for the process. We are happy. Hello?
Yeah. Now there's an issue with the Bawumia campaign team. We are hearing allegations that they are being funded by an Islamic group based in Nigeria. What is the Alan team picking? How do you respond to this allegation? Would you even call for the disclosure of funding sources for various campaign teams?
I don't think that's the regime we're dealing with now. We have been working on mobilizing support from traditional sources and from the general public. We will recall that we launched the Gateway Bielsa campaign before, soliciting funds from the public. And also, we've been seeking funds from well-wishers who are entitled to do so to support the campaign. So we have nothing to worry about as far as campaigning funding is concerned.
All right. Great. So from the OT region, where next will the Alan team be focusing?
Once we are
well, it's like we're having some challenges there, but you're still watching the polls on the Joy News channel.